All right, and what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 3 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And I am your host, Kenneth Ruenfelder. And yeah, we're up to episode 3 of the podcast show. And we got a lot to discuss today, as always. We had a full slate of games yesterday. So we'll go over those in the beginning of the show. Then in the middle of the show, we're going to talk about, well, there's a few things we're going to talk about today because it's going to be a 45-minute show. We're slowly ramping it up. So, really looking forward to that. So, in the second segment, we're going to be talking about the rule changes in baseball. I'll kind of give my thoughts on those. Obviously, if you looked at the title of the stream, and obviously if you're watching it after we stream this, I love the new rule changes, and I'll go into more details with that in the second segment. And then for the third segment, I kind of just want to go through the players that changed teams in the offseason and look at how they're doing right now at this point in the year. Obviously, I might do this again at the end of the year and kind of evaluate how they did. If some of these guys are in the postseason, how they performed in the postseason as well. So that'll be the third segment of the show, and that'll pretty much do it. So that's basically the rundown for today's show. So let's kind of get into the first segment, which is recapping the games from yesterday. And the other thing is, so I was kind of messing around with my desk lamp earlier before streaming, and I'm kind of nervous that it's going to fall down at some point during the stream. So if that does happen, just be prepared for that. But I'm looking to get a ring light so you don't see the shadow that's on the one side of my face. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there just in case it decides to fall over. But right now it doesn't look like it's going to. So we're in good shape because it's got like that clip that you screw in and tighten it on the side of the desk, but my desk isn't like completely flat, so it's kind of like hanging off a little bit. So hopefully that doesn't fall. But just wanted to make you aware in the event that that does happen. So let's get into baseball. That's enough about me. Let's get into baseball. So obviously, like I said, full slate of games yesterday. So we'll kind of just run through the games and look at the current standings for both leagues. So let's start off and get my team out of the way. So the Yankees, they won 4-3 yesterday against the Tigers, and that actually was their fifth straight win. And now they're back over 500. They're 70-69 on the season. They're now 6.5 games back of that third wild card spot. So you're telling me there's a chance. They're playing well. And, the Tigers obviously aren't a very good team, but, the Yankees getting back over 500, I think, is huge for them. They've been playing good baseball, obviously, coming off of that sweep against the Astros as well. So they're looking good as of late. They're getting good starting pitching. So, 6.5 games back isn't, it used to be like, 11, 12 games. Now they got it down to 6.5. Not saying that they're going to make it, but they could definitely make it interesting if they keep playing this way. So so that was a win for them last night. The Brewers took a huge loss yesterday to the Pirates, losing 5-4. And the Cubs won 8-2 against the Giants, and they swept the Giants. So now the Cubs inch a little bit closer in the NL Central race, and I'll get into that once I get through all the scores. Guardians, they actually defeated the Twins 2-1. Again, like I was saying yesterday, Twins pretty much got this division all wrapped up, barring a collapse from them and the Guardians, getting together, putting together a hot streak. But I don't see that happening. So there was that game, and the Blue Jays, they suffer a tough loss, losing 5-2 to the Athletics. They're trying to get that third wild card spot. The Rangers lost again yesterday to the Astros. So the Blue Jays, I think, for the moment, still have that third wild card spot, but losing to the A's is not something you want to see, especially at this point in the year. This is a team that has 97 losses on the season. Diamondbacks pick up a huge win yesterday, winning 12-5 over the Rockies. So, that's a big win. Keep them in pace, for that third wild card spot as well. The Phillies, they went 5-1 yesterday over the Padres. I was listening to that game, and the Padres only had 3 hits in that game. They scored their 1 run in the bottom of the ninth inning. Zach Wheeler pitched really well, going 11-6 on the season now. Michael Wacha took the loss. He's 11-3. He's actually been pretty good for the Padres this year, and he's somebody that we might talk about in the final segment of the show. So yeah, Padres, I mean, their disappointing season continues. They're 66-75 now on the season. Playoffs are not likely for them. Just a very big disappointment. And when I go over teams that have been, disappointments, that's a team that is going to be part of that discussion because, you go into the season with all these expectations and this lineup that on paper was going to be amazing. And the fact that they're sitting in the position that they are right now is just it's a big disappointment, and it's going to be an interesting offseason what they're going to do. Are they going to run it back? I think I talked about this already, but they probably will. And you look at their run differential, it's pretty good this season, but the record just is not. So the Mariners, moving on, Mariners and Reds. Mariners win 8-4 over the Reds, so they pick up a big win, keep pace for the AL West. So now they're at 78-61. Rays defeated the Red Sox 3-1 yesterday. Glass now picked up the win. Pivetta picked up the loss. And the Marlins, a team that I was talking about, between them and the Reds getting that final wild card spot, they actually defeated the Dodgers again, 11-4. So they're playing really good baseball right now. And this actually comes with news. So yesterday, the Marlins placed a couple of their players on the IL, Sandy Alcantara, their starting pitcher, and Jorge Soler. So those are pretty big losses for the Marlins, but they continue to roll. They have now won 6 in a row, and yeah, right now where they sit currently, they have that third wild card spot with the Diamondbacks a half game out. But again, I'll get into that once I get through the rest of these scores. The Nationals beat the Mets 3-2. Nothing really much to say about that. And the Cardinals beat the Braves again, 11-6. I know I said yesterday, not a big deal. Braves are still winning that division, but now they lost 2 in a row to the Cardinals. Is there, I mean, the Braves will figure it out, but is there Braves fans, if you watch this, is there any reason to be concerned over losing these last couple of games to the Cardinals? I don't know. Then we got the White Sox defeating the Royals 6-4. Nothing really much to say about that either. And this was the big series, okay? Astros defeating the Rangers 12-3 and completing the 3-game sweep of the Rangers. And like I said yesterday, the Astros are now in first place for the first time, sole possession of first place for the first time all season in the AL West, which I thought was interesting because, this is a team that wins the division pretty much every year. And the Rangers, they've held that for a large portion of the year, and they've kind of just been struggling as of late. And this was a big game. The Rangers were trying to avoid the sweep, and you had 2 former teammates going at it, whether it was on the Tigers or the Mets. And this was actually the first time that they faced each other, because if you remember, when Scherzer was on the Nationals, they played the Astros in the World Series, and Verlander and Scherzer didn't match up against each other, which I could have swore, even like after that, I could have swore that they could have at least started against each other at least once, but that hasn't happened, and it happened yesterday, and the Astros jumped all over Scherzer. Jose Abreu had 7 RBIs on the day. It was a rough one for the Rangers. And Jose Abreu was a guy that will probably be talked about in the final segment of today's show. He was off to a slow start too with the Astros, but seems like he's starting to play better as of late. I mean, there was a while where he hadn't even hit a home run yet, and so he had a big game. Alvarez, he had 2 RBIs. I think he was one of the guys that hit a home run yesterday. Altuve actually went 0 for 4, so he didn't do anything, but it didn't matter because the Astros put up 12 runs. Um, Verlander, 7 innings, 1 hit, or no, sorry, 4 hits, 1 earned run. That's what I meant to say. 6 strikeouts, so pretty good start by him. And then you look over at Scherzer's numbers, and yes, 3 innings, 6 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. He gave up 3 home runs yesterday. So, yeah, that's not what you want. That's not what you want, especially when you're trying to avoid a sweep. Yeah, Alvarez hit a home run. Yordan Alvarez. Okay, again, I'm still not over the fact that I said Pedro Alvarez on the first show. Michael Brantley, he made his return a couple days ago. He hit his second home run on the season, so that's a big guy to have back in your lineup. Michael Brantley's a solid player, and then obviously Jose Abreu hit the grand slam as well. So, yeah, that was a big loss for the Rangers. And Astros, after getting swept by the Yankees, they go out and sweep their division rivals. So I guess they're okay. They're fine. And believe me, like I listen. As much as I was happy that the Yankees were able to sweep the Astros, it was kind of a meaningless series for us. I mean, it was an important series for the Astros, but a meaningless series for us because they're most likely not making the playoffs. So, but yeah, the Astros, it looks like they found their groove. And yeah, there's a lot of teams that are off tomorrow. I think the next team they play, I'm looking right now. Oh yeah, they play the Padres. So we'll see what happens with that. And then the final game, the Orioles winning 10-3 over the Angels. Orioles, it's going to be between them and the Rays. So for the AL East, and we'll now move over to the the divisions and the wild cards. So right now, Orioles sit 3.5 games up on the Rays. It's going to be close to the very end. I think I said already, though, I think the Orioles, they got this division locked up. And they will, I think they will ultimately win it when it's all said and done. Well, I shouldn't say it's locked up, but I think that's the team that's going to win this division. But we'll see what happens. The Rays, they're keeping pace with them. Both teams are 7-3 in their last 10 games. So they're both playing well at this point. So it's going to be very close to the end. So right now, the magic number for the Orioles to clinch the division is 20. So we got a long way to go. But right now, I'm leaning towards the Orioles taking it. But we'll see. The Central, AL Central, we'll skip over that. With the win yesterday, the Guardians did pick up a game on the Twins. So they're 6 games back. But the Twins got this division, I think. Again, AL West. The Astros right now game up on the Mariners, and the Rangers are 3 games back. Rangers are 3-7 in their last 10 games, and the Astros are actually 7-3 in their last 10 games. So outside of the sweep of the Yankees, they've been doing really well. So it's kind of funny to think about. Angels, they're 1-9 in their last 10. So obviously, I talked about Ohtani yesterday, and yeah, it's not. It's really not looking good. It hasn't been a good couple weeks for them. So I'm going to run through these quickly. So the Braves, obviously, they lost a couple of the Cardinals, but they're okay. They're going to be fine. Cubs picked up a game on the Brewers. They're in 1.5 games back, so that's getting very close. And I think they actually play each other to end the season. I was looking at the schedules, so we'll go over the schedules. At some point, and I'll really dive into, based on what they are, who's going to come out on top. So, Dodgers, they got the West wrapped up. Don't really need to talk about that. So currently, we'll just run through, who has the wild card spots at the moment. So the Rays, they got the top spot. Mariners, Blue Jays, Rangers are a half game out. Red Sox 5, Yankees 6.5. Then in the National League, you have the Phillies and the Cubs. They're probably locked into those 2 spots. And right now, the Marlins hold on to the 3rd wild card spot. Reds and Diamondbacks are a half a game back. Giants are 2.5 games back for that 3rd spot. So that's basically recap of the games from yesterday and what the current standings are. So with that, we're going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about the rule changes. And as you can see on the bottom, rule changes do work. So Stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, so hopefully I didn't cut myself off there because with the transitions, the first video actually I ended my video, I cut off the ending of me closing out the show. So I'm hoping that that didn't really cut out. But anyways, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. For now, the second segment, we're going to talk about the rule changes and my overall thoughts on them. Again, another segment, just like the next segment, where I probably could have waited till the end of the year to talk about it, but I think it's just because, first starting out, I want to get my thoughts on a lot of these things. And the rule changes was a huge thing going into the season. And, it's something I want to touch upon. So obviously, it was definitely something that a lot of the players had to adjust to and we as fans had to adjust to. But I'm going to be honest, like, for me as a watcher, and even going to a few games this season, I really didn't notice that much of a difference, when it came to, just no gaps in between pitches, and guys stepping out of the box and, readjusting their batting gloves and, taking practice swings and all that. I really didn't notice it. Now, when you look at, the time of the game, and I was looking at, an article from earlier in the season. So typically last year, the games averaged like 3 hours and 4 minutes. This year, they were averaging 2 hours and 38 minutes. So that's, a big difference. And I think it's great for the game. I really do. I think baseball, and I talked about this a little bit, but it was about something else. But the popularity of baseball, when you compare that to the NFL and the NBA, baseball's kind of, they're below those organizations, those sports leagues. And also, quick thing, football's back tonight, which I'm really excited about. Baseball has to do something to kind of bring in younger viewers. And, and listen, myself included, attention spans aren't that great. Like with baseball, when you got pitchers, stepping out and constantly throwing over to first base to check on the runner, and you got batters stepping out and, like I was saying, readjusting their batting gloves, taking practice swings and all that, it kind of tunes some people out. And, I think what baseball has done is really love the pitch clock. I love the pitch clock. Now, again, some of the older pitchers, you have to worry about it for a little bit, but they were going to adjust to it. Obviously, being a Yankee fan, and Yankee fans know this, and a lot of baseball fans know this too. When it comes to Garrett Cole has to, everything's got to be, a certain way. Everything has to be perfect. Because if you remember from last year, you had Billy Crystal throwing out the first pitch, and he was taking a while, and Garrett Cole was getting really mad because that Billy Crystal was taking so long. Like, Garrett Cole has his own, like, pregame regimen that he needs to, like, make sure everything's right, before he gets on the mound. So this was something I was a little bit worried about, but based on what Garrett Cole has done this season, it really didn't bother him. And it's all about making adjustments. And obviously, fans were worried about this. I was kind of worried about this too, is, what happens if there's a pitch clock violation, towards the end of a game, and it, affects the outcome, because it did affect it in a spring training game. The batter took a little too long, getting into the box, and he got called out and the game ended. It's like, if that happens in the playoffs, people are going to go nuts, but there's been fewer violations as the season has gone on. But listen, I'm all for the new rules. And the other thing is the shift as well. So pitch clock, I think, is great. Faster pace. You're seeing more action. Now we talk about the shift. Now, I never liked the shift because it was annoying. Because every time you had a left-handed guy come up to the plate, and, Brian McCann, for example, with the Yankees, Rizzo, Gallo. Yeah, bringing up Joey Gallo. Like, I'm just thinking of all these like left-handed hitters that the Yankees have had over the years. Teixeira. Once the shift came into play, it's like a hit that usually is a single. You got the second baseman's out in short right field. It's nothing. Now, I'll be honest, I kind of didn't like that they got rid of the shift. Now, again, they want more action, and I understand that. But I feel like the other thing is with the shift is part of the strategy of the game, and also as a hitter, you got to adjust to that and try to poke it the other way where everybody's on the right side of the infield. You poke it to the left side of the infield where there's nobody there. And now people have done that. There has been some success with that. But that was the one thing I would say is, removing the shift, I feel like you're taking some of the strategy out of the game. But I'm not crying over it. I think it's better off that we don't have the shift. Because now what it is you have to have two fielders on each side of second base. Now, I feel like some teams have kind of, been making it a little bit close with that, where you have, the shortstop, kind of standing close to, behind second base around that area. But they do it so just enough where it's not going to be an issue, So, but yeah, getting rid of the shift, that was another thing. My only thing is you're taking the strategy out of the game, but that's a rule that I could live without that. And then they made larger bases and cutting down on the throwovers, like I said. So steals are coming back into play. And listen, that's another thing too. I mean, you're constantly having pitchers throwing it over, getting rid of that. That's been good. And it's crazy because you look at some of the numbers when it comes to stolen bases. Ronald Acuna has 63 stolen bases on the season. So he's taking advantage of that now. He's taking advantage of those new rules. And then also behind him, Ruiz on the A's, he's got 58 stolen bases on the season. So Steelers are becoming more of a factor into the game again, which is good. Because obviously with some teams, with the Yankees and their home run or bust, mentality, it's nice that stolen bases are coming back into play because you got the hit and runs and all of that. So, moving guys over. And, I think when you have, again, more action, that's really what all these rule changes are, is having more action in your sport. Because obviously when you look at football, college football, the NFL, college basketball, well, college games have a faster pace than the NBA and the NFL. But there's always something going on. With baseball, it's like, stuff happens, every couple of at bats or so, or something like that. There's not a constant flow with baseball. There's slow moments. That's what I was trying to say. With that. So they're trying to add more action, and I feel like that's a good thing. Now, the one thing that I don't like is obviously they kept the extra inning rule where you have a guy at second base. And I understand they don't want, 19 inning games, 18, 19 inning games. But you ended up having one in the playoffs last year. You had the Astros and the Mariners go into 18 innings in Game 3 of the division series last year. And I don't think it's not implemented in the postseason, which is good because, listen, I don't think you should be getting a freebie in a playoff game. Now, you're getting a freebie in the regular season, but the Yankees, I would say, just from being a fan, they are one of the worst teams when it comes to having the ghost runner in extra innings. They are not good in extra innings. In fact, they get themselves thrown out when they had the ghost runner. The ghost runner gets thrown out. There was a game in Seattle last year where 2 or 3 straight innings, the ghost runner would get thrown out. It's embarrassing. That's just from my perspective. Other teams, they actually, can drive in that run, but the Yankees, they don't. They don't. That's one rule that I'm not really a fan of, is the extra inning rule. Because listen, but how often is a game gonna go 18 innings? It's not. But Obviously, there's the 12th, the 13th, 14th, 15 inning games. Those that's really what they're concerned with. They just want to get these games in, and also they don't want to risk injury, and teams having to use up their entire bullpens and things like that. So if you look at it from that perspective, you know it makes sense. But I mean, you're giving teams a freebie. And again, Yankees are getting the same thing when they win off of having a ghost runner at second base. I'm not complaining, but I think that's like the one rule that I can't get by. But the pitch clock, like I said, 26 minutes fewer when it comes to the average time of a game. I mean, that's a big difference. That is a big difference. So, and even like I said, even being at games, you really don't notice the difference. My uncle, when he went to one of the games this year, he noticed the difference. I was just like, yeah, it's kind of the same. I was expecting something to be like so different. It really wasn't that different. But yeah, and then obviously getting rid of the shift, I talked about that. And stolen bases becoming a bigger factor, bigger bases. So yeah, baseball did the right thing with these rule changes. I was very pleased with that. But the ghost runner. I mean, I was so happy when it was just a 1 year thing, and we weren't going to have to deal with that. But then they decided to bring it back, and that is the one rule I just cannot get behind. I really can't. And again, I could be salty for saying it because my team is not very good when it comes to that rule. They don't take advantage of it. But I think a lot of baseball fans would agree that that's probably the one rule that they don't like. But the other thing is, I listen to the sports radio, local stations here, and when you hear fans call up and they say, I don't like these new rules because I can have baseball on in the background, I could take a nap while it's on, and I could wake up and it's still on, I could read a book, I could do this, I could do that. You're talking about doing all these different things while you have the game on, and it's like, that's not what this is about. It's and honestly, for me, again, it just like, obviously, like I said, 26 minutes are taken off from the total time of the game. But at least for me, I don't really like. I really don't notice it. I mean, obviously, once the game's over, then you're like, wow, that game went really fast. But you know, that's not what this is about. I just thought that was funny. It's like I could take a nap and it's still on. It's like, but then you're not even watching the game. You got to watch the game. I don't know. But you know what? The other thing is, in general, and this goes for a lot of different things. A lot of people don't like change. I don't like change. People just don't like it. They don't like that America's pastime is now being, changed a little bit. But it's for the better. It's for the better. These rules are great, and it's something that this sport really needed to do, and I think they really knocked it out of the park with that. And it's all about getting that younger audience. Past generations, they're not going to be around forever. As it's terrible to say, but you got to get these younger viewers in because the NFL and the NBA, that's where their attention is at. So baseball's got to figure it out. But with these rule changes, they really, I think they did very well with that. So yeah, that's basically the rule changes segment. How I felt about that. Obviously, we'll see how it impacts the playoffs. It's gonna be interesting to see how it all unfolds. Once the postseason comes around and how that impacts the games. Within those. So, and it might not be a big difference after all, but we shall see. So that's it with this segment. So with that, we're gonna take another quick break, and then when we come back, we're gonna discuss the free agents that switched teams this year, and kind of give my overall thoughts on them and how they have performed with their new team. So stick around. We'll be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, so we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. So, with the third segment and final segment of today's show, this show has really flown by. We're going to be evaluating the free agents that switch teams from the off season. So, I pulled up, the list of the players. Obviously, the ones sprinkled in, some of them like didn't even change teams, like Aaron Judge, Carlos Correa, and Correa almost did switch teams. He went to the. It looked like he was going to go to the Mets. Then he looked like he was going to go to the Giants, and then he ended up coming back to the Twins. So he had an interesting offseason. But I'll just go through some of the big names that switch teams and kind of look at how they've been doing. So the first player is obviously Trey Turner. So Trey Turner, he spent the last couple of seasons with the Dodgers. He did get traded over from the Nationals a couple years ago with Max Scherzer, and he had a rough go, in the beginning of the year, and for a while. And recently, well, a couple weeks ago, he was kind of the reason why the Phillies lost a game against the Marlins, and he was kind of beating himself up over it. And the fans, when they returned back to Citizens Bank Park, they gave him a standing ovation, and they were basically saying, "We're behind you. We know you're going to be good." And since that point, he has been playing very well. His last 30 games, he's batting .339. He's got a 376 on base percentage, and he's got a .718 slugging. He has 12 home runs in his last 30 games. So he's really picked it up. I mean, his last 7 games, he's batting over 400. His last 15, he was batting .358. So he's really putting together a good stretch, and that's exactly what the Phillies need. Obviously, there you got that top wild card spot, and they're trying to get back to the World Series. He's got 22 home runs right now on the season, 67 RBIs, 262 batting average, 761 OPS. So, getting that close to 800, which is what you want. But yeah, he's been great as of late. So if he continues that hot stretch, that's really going to be a plus for the Phillies. So then the next player is Xander Bogaerts, and obviously, I've been talking about them the last, the shows that I've done so far, but the Padres. I mean, yesterday, another bad performance, losing 5-1 to the Phillies. So, yeah, you go from Trey Turner on the Phillies to Bogaerts of the Padres. So that's a good transition, I would say. Bogaerts got off to a hot start. He's still, numbers are okay this season. 16 home runs, 48 RBIs, 272 batting average, a 755 OPS. Actually, he's batting over 500 in his last 7 games. He is 13 of 25. He's got a home run, 3 RBIs. His last 30 games, 5 home runs, 11 RBIs, 287 batting average, 478 slugging. But comparing his numbers to last year with the Red Sox, the RBIs are actually down. Right now he's at 48. He finished last year with only 73 RBIs. That's interesting, because I feel like Bogaerts would have more than that in 150 games. He's got more home runs than he did last year. Last year he had 15. This year he has 16. Walks are around the same, 57 last year, 51 this year. Last year he was batting over 300. OPS, he had an 833. So the numbers are kind of down from last year. I would say he's still been okay this year for the Padres. But, the Padres, they've been a disappointment, to say the least. And, but Bogaerts is going to be there for a long time. He signed that 11-year contract. Same thing as Trey Turner. Trey Turner signed an 11-year contract. So, Bogaerts is definitely going to have better years. He's got that proven track record. So, we'll just have to wait and see. So obviously, next guy I want to talk about, and it'll be brief, is Jacob DeGrom. So yeah, Jacob DeGrom, he signed that 5-year contract with the Rangers, going to be that that frontline starter, and now he has to get Tommy John again. And listen, this is not the first time the Rangers have signed a pitcher and it didn't really pan out or traded for a pitcher. They got Corey Kluber a couple years ago, and he only pitched like 2 innings for him. And Corey Kluber's a Cy Young winner. Same thing as DeGrom. And it's just unfortunate because Jacob DeGrom, when he's healthy, I mean, he's easily the best pitcher in baseball. But it's just unfortunate that injuries are kind of, derailing his career right now. Because, for me, I even love to watch him pitch. I would turn on Mets games when he's pitching because you just know he's going to go out there and dominate. And it really is just fascinating to watch. But, at this point, he's 35 years of age, I believe, 34, 35. And, who knows what's going to happen now? Because, I mean, some people are talking about maybe he becomes like a relief pitcher, a closer. And the same thing is with Ohtani, too. They're talking about that. So I don't really know where DeGrom goes from here. Hopefully he comes back and he, is able to stay healthy. But the track record, I don't know if it's going to happen. So, so then another guy. Actually, we'll go over two Cubs players. So Dansby Swanson, he was another free agent acquisition that the Cubs made. 19 home runs, 70 RBIs, 245 batting average, 748 OPS. He missed some time this year. Last year he actually played every single game for the Braves. So last year he had 25 home runs, 96 RBIs, 277 batting average, a 776 OPS. So RBIs are down, but he's still got time to catch up to that number. And the home runs, he's got some time to do that as well. So he kind of is having pretty much around the same season he kind of had from last year. So, you know what? Hey, listen, Cubs are on their way to the playoffs, and Swanson knows, how to play in those games. So, we'll see how he does in the postseason. But, yeah, so he's just another guy, to talk about. And then we'll talk about another Chicago Cub, and that is somebody that I talked about in one of the previous shows briefly, and that is Cody Bellinger. And as you could see, I used a graphic for today's show. Cody Bellinger had a couple of rough seasons last couple of years for the Cubs, the Dodgers. He only played in 95 games in 2021. Last year he played in 144 games, and last year he hit 210. The year before that he hit 165. Slugging, OPS, on base percentage, they were all down. Last year he had 19 home runs. This year, and I talked about this, and he hit another home run I think yesterday. So he's got 24 home runs on the season. He's got 86 RBIs. He's batting .321, and he's got a .920 OPS. So he's really bounced back, and this is off a 1-year contract. He just went to the Cubs and changed the scenery. You hope that it works out. And listen, if he's one of the main reasons why the Cubs are holding on to that second wild card spot. So he's going to be a guy that teams are going to want to get. And the Yankees, that's what I'm hoping. But we'll see. Maybe he stays with the Cubs. But yeah, he's had a big season. He's had a great season, and to get a guy like him. And, he takes what he does this year and he, either stays in Chicago or goes to a new team. I mean, and he continues to perform like this. I mean, you're getting a great player. So, but yeah, I used a graphic today, Cody Bellinger. Hopefully he's wearing pinstripes next year, but we'll see. So yeah, that was just another player to talk about. Actually, we'll talk about a Yankee player actually, and that's Carlos Rodon. So obviously he signed a big contract with the Yankees in the offseason. It was a 6-year contract, missed a large portion of the year with injuries. He had like the back issues, and then he was on the IL again with a hamstring. It hasn't gone well so far. He actually does pitch tonight against Eduardo Rodriguez. So right now, Rodon's numbers, he's 2-4 with the 5.7 ERA. Yeah, I think as Yankee fans, we got to give him another chance. We're gonna have him for a while. Hopefully, he is able to bounce back, because last year he was really good. 14-8, 2.88 ERA in 31 games. 31 starts. But before we got him, there was a lot of talk about him, with his injury history, and the Yankees went in and got him. And listen, if he's able to bounce back next year, we can forget this year. I would still like for him to pitch good, but this has kind of been like a lost year for the Yankees in general. So next year is going to be the time to hit the reset button. But yeah, so hasn't really been that good, but again, maybe next year he'll bounce back. So another guy actually who used to play for the Yankees I want to talk about is Andrew Benintendi. So he signed a 5-year contract with the White Sox, and I was hoping the Yankees were going to bring him back because the Yankees obviously needed a left fielder. And he decided to go to the White Sox, and he said that he wanted to go to a contender, and the White Sox are 54-86 right now. So we go to, and not to say the Yankees are, the Yankees are way better record-wise than the White Sox, but the White Sox are just, they have, that's another team that we'll talk about when it comes to disappointments. Benintendi this year really hasn't been that good. 271, batting average, 700 OPS, 5 home runs, 41 RBIs. He actually never really hit a lot of home runs in any season. Actually, nope, I lied. I was looking at triples. Yeah, 2017 with the Red Sox, 20 home runs, 16 home runs, 13, 17 in 2021. In the last 2 years, he's had 5. In each season, 5 last year and then 5 this year. Last year, the batting average is down, the OPS is down. It really hasn't been that good. And also an interesting stat that my friend sent in our sports group chat last night. So Jason Dominguez, in 19 plate appearances, has a .3 WAR. And Andrew Benintendi, in 543 plate appearances, has a .3 WAR as well. That just kind of shows you exactly the kind of season that Benintendi is having. But I guess this was just an off year for him. Also, another thing, defense really hasn't been good for him. That's part of the reason why the WAR is the way it is. The defense hasn't been good. The batting stats aren't that good. Yeah, it's just a down year for Benintendi, and you hope that the White Sox especially, you got to hope that he bounces back, because that's they paid 5 years to get him. So and then we'll touch upon I guess one more, because we're running out of time here. So we got Wilson Contreras. So he signed with the Cardinals, and obviously the Cardinals have not had a good season. And that's another team. Talking about disappointments, we'll get into that. He came over from the Cubs, and I think he's been better as of late, actually. His OPS is almost at 800. He's batting over 250, 17 home runs, 54 RBIs. Last year he had 22 home runs and 55 RBIs. So his numbers are actually, last year he had a 815 OPS. So numbers are kind of around the same. I know I had him in fantasy, and he wasn't really doing that well for me in the beginning. So I actually dropped him and picked up his brother. But he's actually been okay for them this year, from his numbers. Well, looking at his offensive production, that's pretty much it when it comes to the free agents. This segment flew by. This show flew by. We're actually we're pretty much done now, which is crazy. So an extra segment and the show still goes fast. So with that is all the time that we have for today. I thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a comment on something that you want to talk about. I'll make sure to answer it. And subscribe. Again, leave a comment. We would love that. And so tomorrow, 3 segments again, another 45-minute show. So until tomorrow, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Have a good day, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.